context analysis is kind of limitless. I mean, which context are you talking about? It's really the context related to that change, to the justice and security sector. And as in all change process, humans and organizations are key. So using actors analysis to identify and understand incentives of actors, their fears, their power base and so on, means that when you plan for your theory of change, which eventually will convert it into a log frame or a results matrix, it means that you really know what triggers people, what can have them stop working, and how you can create incentives for change. What will always happen in a dynamic environment is that risks will arise, and if you can see them before they happen and plan for contingencies, you will have a much better likelihood of being successful. Because if you in your context and actors analysis identify that there are certain risks, you can also create contingencies of how will you handle that risk. And then I can add to that mitigation of risks, that one tool that will help you both understand and mitigate risks is, of course, scenario analysis. You can construct three scenarios. One which is a continuation of the present situation, which is basically what you plan for. That's your linear plan. And then your dynamic contingencies is that you plan for a deviation from normality, meaning a very positive development where suddenly things fall in such a way that change is even more possible. So how can you support a more rapid change process? Police reform or justice sector reform, or what it would be. But also what happens, what would you do? What are your contingencies? How would you act if there is an election and suddenly there's a halt? The things you plan will not come about. How can you work on these knots, past that bridge that fell apart? So scenario analysis, identifying 2 or 3 possible different developments will also help you plan for this dynamic environment. And also, of course, then foment and support the theory of change. And to give a particular specific example, working in Honduras or in other settings, we've been working with partners, making a scenario analysis prior to elections, for example. What do we do if this is the outcome of the election? How will that affect the programming? Because if politics is the precondition for successful, sustainable change, making the justice and security sector more effective and more accountable, you can't just plan for the present government. You need to plan for how will a change of government affect the programming. And doing that, and coming back to the dynamic environment, it means that you can also even work with political parties prior to the elections. You can follow up with the new staff in the ministries after elections, because you've been prepared. You know how this will affect your theory of change. Because if you are aiming at, in a post-conflict setting or even during conflict, which is much more difficult, support justice and security sector reform, it is really important to go one step further, not just context or actors analysis, but do a full conflict analysis. What are the drivers of conflict? What are the drivers of peace? And how would a reform of a justice and security sector interact with that? And of course, we see, for example, in Honduras, that the drug on war, both from neighboring countries, but of the Honduran government, of course, risks of militarizing the police, because you want to hit hard. You want to strike down on the drug trade and the drug trafficking. And of course that affects, if you want to aim at community policing, how police will behave. So making a context in depth or conflict analysis in conflict setting is really important. A lighter version of this is to make a conflict sensitive analysis. And that means that you're more looking at what are sensitivities, what connect people and what divide people. And then you can do that exercise, and ISSAT has the tools for its member states and also its community of practice. If you apply that simple, if it's do no harm tool or some other conflict sensitivity tool, you can easily see if what you plan will do harm. Actually, you as a donor or a program manager will do harm, or that actually it can have repercussions on the programming itself, and then it becomes a bit of risk management and risk mitigation. So if you take these tools together, it's scenario analysis, it's context analysis, it's conflict analysis, it's conflict sensitivity analysis, and some others. These can really be supportive for your theory of change, which means that over time you will be prepared also for the unforeseen, because you have analyzed what can happen. You understand the incentives, and when you do the actions, the activities, would have a much better chance of having a real impact on society. Context analysis, actors analysis, conflict sensitive analysis, risk mitigation, scenario analysis. So all these tools can actually be seen as a robust circle around the theory of change. Then all these tools will help you to know that you're going in the right direction, that what you're doing is really bringing change about, because otherwise there's no real reason for continuing the programming.